What role did the police play in this, when all these people were after him, all these attempts were made on his life? Where were the police?
Well, there was an attempt in Los Angeles. I wasn't there, but he told me about it. That's when they had that high-speed chase. And there was no police around that I ever heard of. The only time I ever saw the police do anything for Malcolm was in Philadelphia when we were down there. And we were in the hotel after the meeting. And I think the police were downstairs. These are all black policemen. I didn't see any white cops. The police were downstairs at the door. They were in Malcolm's hotel room. They were outside. They told me they were on both sides. They had the rooms on both sides and the room upstairs over.
So in Philadelphia, you saw good police support, although you're not sure whether it came from the police department or whether these police officers, who you say were black, just took it upon themselves because they liked the man.
Yeah.
But anyhow, he was safe when he went to Philly.
Man, they had shotguns everywhere.
Really?
They were not playing.
But wherever else he went, there wasn't that kind of police concern or even anything near to it.
Nothing. No way.
But now it was clear. Everybody knew that he was being hunted.
Right.
Including the police.
Yeah, I guess they can read.
And yet the police were not running interference?
No. No way.
So what conclusions do you draw, and what conclusions did he draw at the time?
That whoever it was, well, like the thing in France, he couldn't land there. He knew that there's no way in the world the Muslims could have arranged that. The French government didn't take orders from Muhammad, from nobody else for that matter. So he knew it had to be somebody way up higher than the average run-of-the-mill person, or even local police department. They couldn't have pulled off anything like that. And well, I guess they're the same forces that got rid of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He had Secret Service all around him, but that didn't protect him. You see? Who can get better protection than the president?
One would have thought that.
Yeah, one would have thought that. So if they could get him, we wasn't looking for any help from anybody. It's a tough world. It's a risky world. You have to take chances. Things belong to people who grab at them. You can't just sit back and wait for things to happen for you. The whole existence of black people in this country has been a struggle from day one. And what little progress we have made has been because somebody made it happen. It isn't because of the way we part our hair. That's not the reason it's done. Somebody had to make it happen. And that's what Malcolm was trying to do. He's trying to make it happen. And I even meet people now from Elijah's group. I see them all the time. They're in Harlem. Who just now, well, I guess in the last few years, beginning to see what was really going on then, the trick they were caught up in.
What kind of an attitude did Malcolm himself have about all these things that were going against him, even though all the man was trying to do was do right? What was his attitude like?
Oh, we had started, so we had to continue. We couldn't turn back. We had to go as far as we could with it. And then the next generation could take off from there.
He knew that that was all she wrote.
Oh, yeah. None of us were planning on dying of old age. I mean, we hadn't even thought about that. One of the reasons why insurance wasn't important to us and all that kind of stuff. You're living so fast, man, you don't have time to think about a lot of things. It's a fast life when people are hunting you all the time. And you never know who's going to be after you next. So,
what was his attitude toward police, the Bureau, at that time?
Oh, I don't think we really ever discussed it. Well, we didn't.
It was just taken for granted, though, that they were not a source of protection.
No. In that kind of situation, you look out for yourself the best you can.
Is that why he went through such great lengths with both of you, I guess, to put down a record? Earl, you recorded a lot of his speeches.
Yeah.
And Bob, you were taking pictures.
Yeah.
because he wanted to leave as good a record as possible of what he was about.
That's right.
In the little time that he had, huh?
Yeah, we knew that time was running out on us, and especially after the bombing of his house, but even before the bombing of his house. We used to be standing out there on 125th Street in front of Chock full of nuts, and Joseph, the captain from down there, used to come by in that old station wagon they had. He had Norman Butler sitting in the right seat right by him. He'd point us out to him, to Butler. And he'd come up there one day and he's pointing us out. So I walked right over to him. I said, get a good look. He said, make sure you get a good look and don't make no mistakes. And he started smiling. And he drove off. And then another time they came around in a car. We were coming out of the hotel with Malcolm. They pulled right up in front of the Teresa Hotel, and I walked right up to him, and he said something like, I said, I'm like him, brother. I just looked at him. I said, you make sure you get a good look at me. You just have to let people like that know that you scramble their eggs if you have to.
What happened that day? Your role normally at the Audubon was to record his speeches.
Yeah.
And so you were setting up that day?
I'd already set it up.
And what
we were
happened?
set up before he got there.
And when he got there, what did he do?
Well, we stopped in the back and talked for a few minutes. He looked around.
How'd he look?
Haggard, worn, like he'd aged 10 years in the last week. And so we went on into the back of behind the stage of the Audubon. He's sitting back there at a table. And there were 4 or 5 people back there with him. And we were talking about getting it started. I kept telling him he didn't even have to make a speech. Let's get him out of there. But he wanted to make it anyway. And so Benjamin said he would open up. And he sent me out to call Ralph Cooper. I was supposed to call Ralph Cooper. He was supposed to have been there, supposed to be heading up some kind of fundraiser for Malcolm after his house was burned. And I told him, well, let somebody else go out and make a phone call. Man, I don't go around making phone calls. The women do that. But he insisted that I do it. And he was just adamant about it. I had to go make the phone call. And when I went out, I was in the phone booth when I heard the first shot. And then there was some more shots. And then here come all these people just pouring out the door. And this guy later identified as Hare, or whatever his name is. He was running out, still had the gun in his hand. And a bunch of people were kicking him and knocking him until they finally knocked him down. And they were kicking him all in the face, the chest, and everything. And as I remember him, he looked like a zombie. His eyes were bulging, like he was either high on something or he'd been hypnotized. I don't know what was wrong with him, but he just looked like a zombie, and he never let out a sound. And they were about to kick his chest in, and there was no outcry of pain or anything. He looked like a robot.
What did you do?
Well, after this mob kind of got out of the doorway, they had those big double doorways, I got into the room, into the main auditorium, and people everywhere. Some were laying on the ground, on the floor. A couple of them were shot. And I went past them, got up to the stage, and Malcolm was laying on his back, and Brother Lukeman was with him, and some other people. And they were opening up his chest, and I saw all those holes. I know it was over.
Was he still breathing?
No. I don't think so. I mean, it was so hectic, I don't think so. Brother Lukeman was there with him, and then, so I just got my camera out to get as many pictures that I could of everything, because you always have a record of these kind of things. And then when, after, I guess, it sounded, to me, it was like 20 minutes or half an hour before the hospital people got in there from across the hospital. The Presbyterian was right across the street, and they wheeled him over there. And then they surrounded the place like it was Fort Knox. I don't know what the hell they think we were going to do. And they wouldn't let any of us in. We had to sneak Betty around the back of the place to get her in. And I came back down. There was a sister, I'll never forget it. She was standing up in the middle of Broadway crying. Standing right out, Muriel. She was one of the secretaries. And so I got with the brothers, and I told them that it was all over and that everybody should They go home, just remain quiet. If they want to run down and blow everybody at the Muhammad's temple, I said, man, don't be ridiculous. They ain't nothing to do with this. They could never organize anything like that. So they all agreed with that, and they went home. And the next day, we went about, from that day on, to a funeral, organizing the funeral, making sure it would be held, and getting the brothers who were going to be the pallbearers and all that. And there were bomb threats at the church, Reverend Childs' church, and we let it out that we didn't care what they said. We was going to hold Malcolm's funeral. Just didn't give a damn. We were going to hold it anyway. See, when you understand that everybody dies, that nobody lives forever, then people can't threaten you. You can only be threatened if you're dumb enough to think you can live forever. Then people can threaten you. When you know that everybody out there in the cemetery is dead, there ain't no live people out there, that they all dead, then people can't threaten you. You can look any man in the eye and tell him to go to hell. And that was our attitude. And we were going to hold this funeral. We didn't care what anybody thought, man. We're going to hold it anyway. So we held the funeral and got him out to the cemetery, buried him, and that was it. But we kept the organization going as long as we could.
Did you take part in that burial?
Certainly, I was right there.
Did you put scoops of earth on his...
No, I didn't get that close. I was watching everything as usual. And
what were nights like for you in those days immediately after the assassination?
Oh, man, I don't think I got a 4-hour sleep straight at no time during that week. From the time he was, as a matter of fact, from the time his house was bombed until we buried him, I never got a full night's sleep. Till after that was all over. And then we had to keep the organization going as best as we could.
Wait a minute, things were hot now.
Certainly.
So what happened? Did you stay in town?
No. I had some place to go and stay. You always have some place to go. You should plan ahead in anything you do. Have a contingency plan.
So you did leave town?
No, I didn't leave town. I was right here in New York City. I just had some place to be.
But didn't you ultimately go?
Yeah. Before that, the night, say when he was shot that Sunday night, you would never guess where I stayed. I stayed on Sutton Place. That's where I was, in an expensive bed. The chair in there cost $400. That's where I was. And then after that, somebody met me at the Apollo Theater the night they had the fundraiser there. Sammy Davis came up that night, Sammy Davis Jr., and told me that they had gotten word that I should take a vacation. And 3 days later,